Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Library. It's lovely to have you here. Before we begin, I'd love to know where in the world are you listening from tonight? A quiet bedroom, a sleepy train ride, a cozy couch with a warm cup of tea. Wherever you are, I hope you're comfortable, safe, and ready to gently ease into restful thought. If you enjoy these relaxing explorations and would like to hear more, a like and subscribe really helps this sleepy little channel float along. And to those of you already subscribed, thank you. Truly, your support means more than you know. Now, I'll try not to make tonight's topic so interesting that it keeps you wide awake, but if it does, at least you'll have a better understanding of the deepest place on earth and the quiet wonders that exist in its eternal darkness. A small price to pay for a restless night. So, let's begin, shall we? Deep beneath the surface of the Pacific Ocean, where sunlight has never reached, and where the weight of the entire ocean presses down with unimaginable force, there exists a place of profound stillness. A place so remote, so hidden from our daily lives, that more people have walked on the moon than have descended to its deepest point. This is the Mariana Trench, Earth's most mysterious abyss. A crescent-shaped scar in the planet's crust that stretches for over 1,500 miles through the western Pacific Ocean. It's a place where the ordinary rules of life seem suspended, where creatures glow with their own gentle light, and where the darkness is so complete that it becomes almost comforting in its simplicity. Tonight, we'll descend together into this peaceful realm, not in a vessel of metal and glass, but in the gentle vehicle of imagination. We'll explore the quiet facts, the soothing truths, and the serene mysteries of the deepest place in all the world's oceans. There's no need to grasp every detail or memorize every depth measurement. We'll move slowly, softly, one fascinating element at a time, letting the tranquility of this hidden world wash over us like the cold, still waters that fill the trench itself. The Mariana Trench is located in the western Pacific Ocean, approximately 200 miles east of the Mariana Islands, those volcanic jewels that rise from the seafloor like ancient sentinels. The trench itself is a long, curved depression in the Earth's crust, stretching approximately 1,580 miles in length. To put this in perspective, if you were to place it across the United States, it would stretch roughly from New York to Colorado. Yet, despite this impressive length, the trench averages only about 43 miles in width, making it a relatively narrow gash in the ocean floor, like a delicate incision made by the careful hand of geological time. But it is the depth of the Mariana Trench that truly captures our imagination and invites us into a state of peaceful contemplation. At its deepest point, a spot known tenderly as the Challenger Deep, the ocean floor plunges to approximately 36,000 feet below the surface. That's nearly 7 miles down, or just over 10,900 meters if you prefer the metric system. To truly appreciate this measurement, consider this calming comparison. Mount Everest, the world's tallest mountain, reaches a height of 29,029 feet above sea level. If you could somehow lift Everest from its foundations and gently lower it into the Challenger Deep, the mountain's famous peak would still rest more than a mile beneath the ocean's surface, completely submerged, invisible to any passing ship or satellite above. Think about that for a moment. The highest point on Earth, that snow-covered summit that mountaineers dream of reaching, would become just another hidden feature in the darkness of the trench, with thousands of feet of water above it. It's a humbling thought, one that puts our human scale into gentle perspective and reminds us of the vastness of the world we inhabit. The formation of the Mariana Trench is a story told in the slow, patient language of geology, a tale of tectonic plates that move at a pace imperceptible to human senses. The trench exists at the boundary between two of Earth's massive tectonic plates, the Pacific Plate and the smaller Mariana Plate. These enormous sections of the Earth's crust are constantly in motion, though at a rate so gradual that it takes millions of years for significant changes to occur. There's something deeply calming about this timescale, isn't there? The knowledge that the ground beneath our feet, or in this case, the ocean floor, is engaged in a dance that spans epochs and eons, completely unbothered by the hurried pace of human life. The Pacific Plate, which carries some of the oldest oceanic crust on Earth, approximately 170 million years old, is slowly being pushed beneath the Mariana Plate in a process called subduction. This is a fundamental mechanism of plate tectonics, where one plate slides beneath another and descends into the Earth's mantle. As the Pacific Plate dives downward, it creates this magnificent depression, this deep valley in the ocean floor that we call the Mariana Trench. The process is so gradual, so patient, that the trench grows imperceptibly deeper with each passing century, a reminder that the most profound changes often occur through the gentle accumulation of time, rather than through sudden, dramatic events. This subduction process also has another beautiful consequence. As the descending plate moves deeper into the Earth's mantle, water trapped in its minerals is released. This water causes the overlying mantle to melt, creating magma that rises toward the surface. This rising magma feeds the volcanic activity that formed the Mariana Islands themselves, those green jewels of land that mark the location of this underwater wonder. So, the trench and the islands are intimately connected. Two sides of the same geological story, one descending into darkness, while the other reaches toward the light. Now, let us consider the environment at the bottom of the Mariana Trench, for it is truly one of the most extreme places on our planet. Yet there is something oddly peaceful about its constancy, its unchanging nature. At the deepest point of the trench, the pressure exerted by the water column above is almost incomprehensible. The pressure reaches approximately 1,086 bars, or more than 15,750 pounds per square inch. To put this in more relatable terms, imagine standing at sea level with 8 tons of weight pressing down on every square inch of your body. This is more than 1,000 times the atmospheric pressure we experience on the surface of the Earth. And yet, despite this crushing pressure, life exists. Life finds a way, as it always seems to do, adapting to conditions that seem impossible to our surface-dwelling sensibilities. There's something remarkably reassuring about this fact, isn't there? That even in the most extreme environments imaginable, where darkness is absolute and pressure is overwhelming, nature persists, quietly thriving in its own peculiar fashion. The temperature at the bottom of the Mariana Trench is equally extreme, though in the opposite direction. The water here hovers just above freezing, ranging from about 1 to 4 degrees Celsius, or 34 to 39 degrees Fahrenheit. This frigid temperature is maintained because the deep ocean is isolated from the warming influence of the sun. No sunlight penetrates to these depths, and so the water remains perpetually cold, unchanging through the seasons, unaffected by the passage of summer or winter on the surface far above. However, there are pockets of intense heat hidden within this cold darkness. Throughout the Mariana region, including in and around the trench itself, there exist hydrothermal vents, remarkable geological features where superheated water emerges from cracks in the seafloor. These vents are fed by the same volcanic activity that created the Mariana Islands. Water seeps down through cracks in the ocean floor, is heated by the magma below, and then shoots back up, carrying with it dissolved minerals and chemicals. The water emerging from these vents can reach temperatures as high as 700 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to scald instantly. Yet, it doesn't boil because of the immense pressure at these depths. These hydrothermal vents create extraordinary oases of life in the deep sea, supporting entire ecosystems that exist independently of sunlight. While most life on Earth ultimately depends on photosynthesis, on plants and algae converting sunlight into energy, the communities around hydrothermal vents operate on an entirely different principle called chemosynthesis. Specialized bacteria use the chemicals emerging from the vents, particularly hydrogen sulfide, produce organic compounds and energy. These bacteria then form the base of a unique food web, supporting a variety of creatures that cluster around the vents in remarkable abundance. Imagine, if you will, these glowing hot springs scattered across the cold, dark seafloor, each one surrounded by its own thriving community of life. There are white smokers, named for the lighter-colored minerals they emit, and black smokers, where iron sulfides create dark, billowing clouds. Some vents even emit liquid carbon dioxide, creating champagne-like streams of bubbles, or molten sulfur, creating pools of yellow mineral on the seafloor. Each vent is unique, each one a small miracle of geology and biology working in concert. The darkness of the Mariana Trench is absolute and eternal. Sunlight, which penetrates quite well through the first few hundred feet of ocean water, becomes progressively dimmer as depth increases. By the time you reach about 3,300 feet, or 1,000 meters, all traces of sunlight have vanished completely. The deep ocean, including the Mariana Trench, exists in perpetual night, a darkness so complete that it becomes almost tangible, like a presence in itself. This darkness has existed for millions of years, unchanging, patient, and strangely peaceful. Yet, this darkness is not entirely empty. Many creatures in the deep sea have evolved the remarkable ability to produce their own light through a process called bioluminescence. This is one of the most enchanting adaptations in all of nature, and it's particularly common in the depths where sunlight never reaches. In fact, scientists estimate that between 75 and 90% of all organisms living below 1,600 feet possess the ability to create light. Bioluminescence works through a chemical reaction within the organism's body. Special molecules called luciferins react with oxygen in the presence of an enzyme called luciferase, producing light as a byproduct. Different species have evolved different types of luciferins, and they can control when and how they light up, depending on their needs. Some creatures produce a steady glow, while others can flash or pulse their light in patterns. Some can even adjust the intensity and color of their bioluminescence, creating a rainbow of blues, greens, and occasionally reds in the darkness. The purposes of bioluminescence in the deep sea are varied and fascinating. Many creatures use light to find mates, flashing signals to others of their species in the darkness, like lonely lighthouses searching for distant ships. Others use bioluminescence for hunting, either to illuminate their prey or to attract it with a glowing lure. The famous anglerfish, for example, dangles a bioluminescent appendage in front of its mouth, waiting patiently for curious prey to approach before snapping it up in powerful jaws. Still, other creatures use light for defense. Some jellyfish and other organisms will flash brightly when disturbed, a reaction scientists call a burglar alarm. The idea is that the bright flash will startle the predator and attract an even larger predator that might come to investigate, giving the original prey a chance to escape in the confusion. Some squid can even emit clouds of bioluminescent ink, creating a glowing decoy that confuses predators while the squid jets away into the darkness. Perhaps most clever of all are those creatures that use bioluminescence for camouflage. Many fish living in the twilight zone of the ocean, where a dim blue glow from above still penetrates, have light-producing organs called photophores on their bellies. These photophores emit light that matches the color and intensity of the faint sunlight filtering down from above. When a predator looks up from below, it sees what appears to be empty water, because the fish's belly light perfectly matches the background, making its silhouette disappear. This technique, called counter-illumination, is startlingly effective and demonstrates the incredible ingenuity of evolution. So, while the Mariana Trench exists in darkness, it is not a lifeless void. Instead, it twinkles and glows with countless tiny lights, a constellation of living stars scattered through the water column, each one a small beacon of life persisting in the eternal night. The creatures that inhabit the Mariana Trench and the surrounding deep sea are among the most remarkable and strange organisms on Earth. They have evolved specialized adaptations to survive in an environment of extreme pressure, frigid temperatures, complete darkness, and limited food. Let us meet some of these fascinating residents, and as we do, try to imagine them in their natural habitat, slowly moving through the cold, dark water, each one perfectly suited to its environment. One of the most beloved inhabitants of these depths is the Dumbo octopus, a small creature that has captured the hearts of many scientists and ocean enthusiasts. Named for its ear-like fins that resemble the famous Disney elephant character, the Dumbo octopus typically grows to about 8 inches in length, though some specimens have been found that are slightly larger. These fins, which sit atop its bell-shaped body, flap gently to propel the octopus through the water, giving it a graceful, almost comical appearance as it glides along the seafloor. The Dumbo octopus is the deepest living octopus known to science, found at depths of more than 13,000 feet. It has relatively short arms compared to other octopuses, and it lacks an ink sac, which many octopuses use for defense. At the depths where the Dumbo octopus lives, encounters with predators are rare enough that ink defense isn't necessary. Instead, the creature has adapted to a life of quiet foraging, using its arms to search through the sediment for small worms and crustaceans, which it swallows whole. There's something endearing about this small creature, hovering just above the seafloor in the absolute darkness, propelled by its ear-like fins, peacefully going about its business in one of the most inhospitable environments on the planet. Another remarkable resident is the Mariana snailfish, discovered relatively recently in 2017. This small, translucent fish holds the record as the deepest living fish ever recorded, found at depths of more than 26,000 feet. The snailfish has a gelatinous body that lacks scales, giving it an almost ethereal appearance. Its cartilage-based skeleton, rather than one made of bone, helps it withstand the crushing pressures of the deep. The fish has small eyes and a rounded face that some might describe as almost gentle or innocent-looking. The Mariana snailfish clusters in small groups, swimming slowly along the seafloor or hovering just above it. They feed on tiny crustaceans and amphipods, those small shrimp-like creatures that are abundant even at great depths. What's particularly interesting about the snailfish is that it seems perfectly comfortable at these extreme depths. It's not struggling to survive in a harsh environment. This is its home, the place where it has evolved to thrive, and it appears completely at ease in the cold, dark water, where the pressure would instantly crush an unprepared organism. Speaking of amphipods, these small crustaceans deserve special mention. They are among the most abundant creatures in the Mariana Trench, found in vast numbers scuttling across the seafloor and swimming through the water column. Amphipods are scavengers, feeding on organic material that drifts down from the upper layers of the ocean, a phenomenon scientists call marine snow. This marine snow consists of dead plankton, fish waste, and other organic particles that slowly settle toward the ocean floor, providing a critical source of food for deep-sea creatures. Some amphipods found in the Mariana Trench have grown to enormous sizes compared to their shallow water relatives, a phenomenon known as deep-sea gigantism. Scientists discovered supergiant amphipods during expeditions to the trench, some measuring several inches in length. These creatures have made a remarkable adaptation. They use not only calcium, but also aluminum to strengthen their exoskeletons, making them the first known species to incorporate aluminum in this way. They apparently ingest aluminum from sediments on the seafloor and use it to reinforce their shells against the crushing pressure. There are also creatures in the trench with truly otherworldly appearances. The deep-sea dragonfish, for instance, is a fierce predator. Despite its small size of only about 6 inches, it has a long, eel-like body covered in slippery skin rather than scales, and its mouth is filled with oversized, needle-like teeth that look almost too large for its head. The dragonfish is bioluminescent, able to produce both blue-green light and, remarkably, red light. Most deep-sea creatures cannot see red wavelengths because red light doesn't penetrate to these depths. So the dragonfish essentially has night vision goggles, able to illuminate and see its prey without the prey knowing it's being watched. The barrel-eye fish is another creature that seems almost too strange to be real. This fish has a completely transparent head, like a dome of glass, through which you can see its barrel-shaped eyes pointing upward. These unusual eyes are incredibly sensitive to light and are fixed in an upward-facing position, allowing the fish to detect the silhouettes of prey swimming above it in the dim light of the deep twilight zone. The transparent head may help collect and focus what little light exists at these depths, giving the barrel eye a slight advantage in the eternal darkness. Then there are the zombie worms, scientifically known as osedacs, though their common name is far more evocative. These unusual worms were first discovered in 2002, and they have a truly remarkable lifestyle. They feed exclusively on bones, particularly whale bones that have sunk to the ocean floor. Zombie worms don't have a mouth or a stomach. Instead, they secrete acid that breaks down the bone, exposing the lipids and nutrients inside, which are then processed with the help of symbiotic bacteria living in the worm's body. The female zombie worms do most of the work, drilling into the bones with their roots. The males, by contrast, are microscopic and live inside the females' bodies, sometimes hundreds of them in a single female, their only purpose being reproduction. It's a bizarre arrangement, but it works beautifully in an environment where food is scarce and opportunities must be seized efficiently. The deep-sea hatchetfish is named for its distinctive body shape, which resembles a silvery hatchet or axe blade. These small fish, only about 6 inches long at their largest, have incredibly thin bodies and large upward-facing eyes. They possess bioluminescent organs on their bellies, and they can adjust the intensity of their glow to match the faint light filtering down from above, making them nearly invisible to predators looking up from below. Watching a hatchetfish in its natural habitat, slowly swimming through the water column with its belly glowing softly, must be like watching a living ornament gently floating through space. There are also several types of jellyfish in the deep sea, including species found near the Mariana Trench. The benthochodon jellyfish is particularly interesting. Unlike many jellyfish which are transparent, the benthochodon has a reddish or orange coloring. Scientists believe this coloration helps mask the bioluminescent glow of the tiny creatures it eats, preventing the jellyfish from becoming a glowing beacon that might attract its own predators. It's a clever adaptation, using color to hide light. Another example of the ingenious solutions evolution finds to the challenges of deep-sea survival. We must also mention the goblin shark, a truly prehistoric-looking creature. This rare shark has a distinctive elongated snout, small eyes, and jaws that can shoot forward to capture prey. Its skin is pinkish or grey, lacking the typical shark coloration, which may help it blend into the dim environment where it lives. Goblin sharks are rarely seen, and much about their behavior remains mysterious. They can grow to over 12 feet in length and are believed to be slow-moving ambush predators, using special sensors called ampullae of Lorenzini in their snouts to detect the weak electrical fields generated by potential prey. The frilled shark is another ancient-looking species with an eel-like body that can reach 6 feet in length. It has 6 pairs of frilly gills, giving it its name, and more than 20 rows of trident-shaped teeth. The frilled shark is sometimes called a living fossil because it resembles sharks that lived many millions of years ago. It feeds on other deep-sea creatures, swallowing them whole with its flexible jaw. Despite its somewhat intimidating appearance, there's something almost elegant about the frilled shark as it undulates through the dark water, a living connection to the distant past of our planet. Then there are the anglerfish, perhaps the most famous of deep-sea creatures. Female anglerfish have a bioluminescent lure that dangles in front of their mouths, a modified dorsal fin that glows with the help of symbiotic bacteria. They sit motionless in the water, waiting patiently for prey to approach the glowing lure, then strike with lightning speed. The males of many anglerfish species are tiny compared to the females and practice a bizarre form of parasitism. When a male finds a female, he bites into her body and fuses with her permanently, becoming essentially an appendage that provides sperm when needed. While this might sound disturbing to our human sensibilities, it's actually a clever solution to the problem of finding a mate in the vast, dark ocean where encounters are rare. Sea cucumbers are also common in the trench, slowly crawling along the seafloor and processing sediment to extract organic nutrients. Some species, like the pink see-through fantasia, are remarkably beautiful despite their odd appearance. This particular sea cucumber has transparent skin through which you can see its internal organs, and it swims with an undulating motion that has been compared to a graceful underwater ballet. It's sometimes called the headless chicken fish because of its peculiar swimming style. But watching it move through the water is actually quite mesmerizing and peaceful. There are also comb jellies in the deep sea, delicate creatures that propel themselves with rows of tiny cilia that beat in coordinated waves. The cilia can refract whatever light is present, creating rainbow-like shimmers that are truly beautiful to observe. Despite their delicate appearance, comb jellies are voracious predators, and some species have been known to engage in cannibalism when food is scarce. But there's still something gentle and hypnotic about watching them pulse slowly through the water, their cilia creating ripples of color in the darkness. The vampire squid deserves special mention as well. Despite its dramatic name and its dark reddish coloration and cape-like webbing between its arms, the vampire squid is actually quite harmless. It doesn't hunt living prey at all. Instead, it feeds on marine snow, using its long filaments to collect bits of organic matter drifting through the water. When threatened, the vampire squid can emit bioluminescent ink, creating a glowing cloud that confuses predators while the squid escapes. It can also turn itself inside out, wrapping its arms over its body to hide. Scientists have also discovered single-celled organisms in the Mariana Trench that are truly enormous for single cells, some growing as large as a mango. These are called xenophyrophores, and they create intricate shells from particles they collect from the water. They're among the largest single-celled organisms on Earth, and their presence at such extreme depths demonstrates that even the most basic forms of life can adapt to thrive in seemingly impossible conditions. In 2024, during an expedition aboard the Chinese submersible Fenduze, meaning striver, scientists made remarkable discoveries of entire colonies of worms and mollusks living at depths between 8,000 and 31,000 feet. They found thousands of tube worms and bivalves clustered around chemosynthetic communities, places where the organisms rely on chemical energy rather than sunlight. These colonies represented the deepest and most extensive chemosynthesis-based ecosystems ever recorded, and they suggested that such communities might be more widespread in the deep ocean trenches than previously thought. These chemosynthetic communities rely on the chemicals emerging from the seafloor, particularly methane produced by microbes and hydrogen sulfide from hydrothermal vents. The tube worms house symbiotic bacteria in their bodies that convert these chemicals into energy and nutrients. The tube worms can grow quite large, forming dense forests on the seafloor that provide habitat for numerous other organisms. Crabs, shrimp, gastropods, and other creatures cluster around these chemosynthetic oases, creating complex ecosystems entirely independent of the sun. The discovery that life is not only present, but thriving in such abundance at the greatest depths of the ocean is one of the most encouraging and beautiful findings in all of marine biology. It reminds us that life is remarkably resilient and adaptable, that the boundaries of what's possible are constantly being expanded, and that even in places we once thought were too extreme to support life, nature finds a way to not merely survive, but to flourish. The exploration of the Mariana Trench has its own fascinating history, a story of human curiosity and technological achievement that spans nearly 150 years. The first measurement of the trench's depth was made in 1875 during the Challenger expedition, a pioneering oceanographic journey organized by the British Royal Navy. Using weighted ropes, the crew of HMS Challenger recorded a depth of approximately 4,475 fathoms, or about 26,850 feet. While this measurement was not entirely accurate by modern standards, it was the first indication that something extraordinary existed in this region of the Pacific Ocean. The trench was named after the nearby Mariana Islands, which themselves were named Las Marianas, in honor of Spanish Queen Mariana of Austria. Over the following decades, various expeditions attempted to measure the trench's depth more accurately. In 1899, the USS Nero, a converted collier ship, recorded a depth of over 31,000 feet. Then, in 1951, HMS Challenger 2 returned to the area with echo-sounding equipment, a much more precise method than weighted ropes. This survey discovered the deepest part of the trench, which was named Challenger Deep in honor of the original Challenger expedition. The first human descent to the bottom of the Mariana Trench occurred on January 23, 1960, and it remains one of the most remarkable achievements in the history of ocean exploration. Swiss oceanographer Jacques Piccard and United States Navy Lieutenant Don Walsh climbed into the bathyscaphe Trieste, a specially designed deep-diving vessel, and began their descent. The journey to the bottom took approximately 5 hours, and the two men reached a depth of approximately 35,814 feet, nearly 7 miles down. At the bottom, despite the complete darkness and crushing pressure, Piccard and Walsh observed living creatures through the Trieste's small porthole. Piccard reported seeing what appeared to be a flatfish about 12 inches long, though many marine biologists have since expressed skepticism about this sighting, suggesting it may have been a sea cucumber or other organism. Regardless, the presence of life at such depths was confirmed, and this discovery fundamentally changed our understanding of the ocean's capacity to support life. However, Piccard and Walsh could only remain at the bottom for about 20 minutes. The descent had stirred up clouds of sediment that made visibility poor, and they were unable to take any photographs. Nevertheless, they had achieved something extraordinary. They had touched the deepest point on Earth and returned safely to tell the tale. After this historic dive, more than 50 years would pass before another human returned to the Challenger Deep. The technology existed, but the missions were expensive and challenging to organize. Deep-sea exploration often received far less funding than space exploration, despite the ocean being equally mysterious and arguably more relevant to life on Earth. Finally, on March 26, 2012, filmmaker James Cameron, known for directing movies like Titanic and Avatar, piloted the deep-sea Challenger submersible to the bottom of the Challenger Deep in a solo dive. Cameron's descent took approximately 70 minutes, faster than the Trieste's journey more than 5 decades earlier, and he spent more than 4 hours at the bottom collecting scientific samples and filming the environment. He described the seafloor as desolate, but also strangely beautiful, a lunar landscape of pale sediment stretching away into the darkness. Cameron's expedition brought high-quality footage of the deep ocean to millions of people around the world, helping to generate public interest in deep-sea exploration. The samples he collected provided valuable scientific data, including new insights into the microbial life that exists at such depths. Since Cameron's dive, several other individuals have reached the Challenger Deep. In 2019, explorer Victor Vescovo made multiple dives in the DSV limiting factor, a specially designed submersible. Vescovo completed dives to all of the major areas within Challenger Deep, including the Western Pool, Central Pool, and Eastern Pool, each slightly different in depth and character. On one of these dives, he was accompanied by Kelly Walsh, the son of Don Walsh, bringing the story full circle and connecting the generations of explorers who have been drawn to this mysterious place. In 2020, the Chinese submersible Fenduzi conducted a series of dives to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, part of China's growing program of deep-sea exploration. Between October and November of that year, Fenduzi completed 13 dives, collecting samples and making observations that contributed to our understanding of the trench's unique ecosystems. Despite these successful missions, the Mariana Trench remains one of the least explored places on Earth. Fewer than 30 people have ever reached its deepest point, compared to more than 550 who have been to space. The ocean floor in the trench has been mapped with increasing precision, using sonar and other remote sensing technologies, but vast areas remain unvisited by human eyes or cameras. Each expedition discovers new species and observes behaviors never before documented, suggesting that we have only scratched the surface of understanding this remarkable environment. The challenges of exploring the Mariana Trench are formidable. The pressure alone would instantly crush any conventional submarine or diving vessel. The specialized submersibles that can reach these depths must be built with incredibly strong materials, typically titanium or specially formulated syntactic foams that can withstand the compression. The sphere that holds the crew must be perfectly round to evenly distribute the pressure. Even tiny flaws in construction could be catastrophic. The cold temperatures can affect equipment function, and the complete darkness requires powerful lights for any observation. Yet these lights can disturb the very organisms scientists hope to study. The descent itself takes hours, and surface conditions must be nearly perfect for a safe mission. Recovery of the submersible after ascent is challenging, as the vehicle must be located and retrieved in what is often rough open ocean far from any port. Funding for deep-sea exploration is limited, and each mission costs millions of dollars. When compared to the attention and resources devoted to space exploration, ocean exploration receives a fraction of the support, even though the ocean is more directly relevant to our daily lives, providing food, regulating climate, and supporting ecosystems that humanity depends upon. Yet despite these challenges, exploration continues, driven by human curiosity and the recognition that understanding the deep ocean is crucial for understanding Earth itself. Each dive, each sample collected, each observation made, adds to our knowledge of how life works, how ecosystems function, and how our planet operates as an integrated whole. The Mariana Trench is not simply a curiosity, an interesting geographic feature to mark on maps. It is a unique natural laboratory where scientists can study life under extreme conditions, investigate geological processes that shape our planet, and even search for clues about how life might exist on other worlds. The pressure and temperature conditions in the trench are similar to what might be found in the subsurface oceans of Jupiter's moon, Europa, or Saturn's moon, Enceladus. Celestial bodies that many scientists believe could harbor life. Understanding how organisms survive and thrive in the Mariana Trench may help us recognize what to look for when searching for life beyond Earth. In 2009, the United States established the Marianas Trench Marine National Monument, creating one of the world's largest marine protected areas. The monument covers approximately 61 million acres of submerged lands and waters around the Mariana Islands, including the trench itself. This designation helps protect the unique ecosystems found in this region from destructive activities like deep-sea mining, bottom trawling, and unregulated fishing. The monument protects not only the trench, but also the volcanic islands and seamounts of the region, which support diverse coral reef ecosystems. The waters around the northern Mariana Islands have surprisingly high concentrations of large predators, including sharks, a sign of a healthy, balanced ecosystem. These relatively pristine environments provide scientists with valuable baseline information about what coral reefs and ocean ecosystems can look like when they're not heavily impacted by human activities. Within the monument, there are also places where both photosynthesis and chemosynthesis occur in close proximity, a rare phenomenon. At Maug, an underwater volcanic caldera, hydrothermal vents rise close enough to the surface that sunlight can still penetrate the water. This creates a unique environment where organisms that rely on sunlight exist alongside those that draw energy from chemicals, offering scientists a natural laboratory for studying how different energy sources can support life in the same location. As ocean acidification and climate change alter marine environments worldwide, studying places like the vents at Maug can help scientists understand how organisms might adapt to changing conditions. The corals near these vents are exposed to acidic water from the hydrothermal emissions, yet they have adapted and continue to thrive, potentially offering insights into how reef systems elsewhere might cope with increasing ocean acidity. Despite the protections afforded by the monument designation, the Mariana Trench is not immune to human impact. In recent years, researchers have discovered plastic debris and other pollutants even at the deepest points of the trench. Plastic bags, candy wrappers, and other refuse have been observed during deep-sea expeditions, carried to these depths by ocean currents or sinking through the water column. This is a sobering reminder that human activities affect even the most remote places on Earth. Places that seem so far removed from our daily lives that we might imagine them untouched. Additionally, tests on amphipods collected from the trench revealed high levels of persistent organic pollutants in their tissues, chemicals that were used in industry and released into the environment decades ago before being banned. These pollutants entered the ocean, were transported by currents, and eventually found their way to the deepest parts of the sea, where they accumulated in the food chain. The amphipods contained contamination levels similar to those found in animals living in heavily industrialized coastal areas, demonstrating that nowhere in the ocean is truly isolated or pristine. These findings highlight the interconnected nature of our planet. The chemicals released in one place can travel vast distances and affect ecosystems we never see, in ways we never intended. They serve as a gentle but firm reminder that we must be thoughtful stewards of our environment, recognizing that our actions have consequences that ripple outward, touching even the most hidden corners of the world. The sounds of the Mariana Trench are also fascinating, though perhaps unexpected. We tend to think of the deep ocean as silent, a realm of absolute quiet to match its absolute darkness. But in 2015, researchers from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, Oregon State University, and the Coast Guard deployed a titanium-shelled hydrophone into the Challenger Deep, the first time such an instrument had been placed at such depth. The device was designed to record ambient sounds and withstand the enormous pressure of the deep. When the hydrophone was recovered months later, the researchers were surprised by what they found. The recordings revealed a soundscape far richer than expected. They detected natural sounds including earthquakes rumbling through the Earth's crust, the approach of typhoons churning the ocean surface far above, and even the calls of baleen whales, those gentle giants swimming through the waters thousands of feet above the trench floor. The whales' songs, carried through the water by sound waves, reached even into the deepest abyss, filling the darkness with their haunting melodies. There were also human-made sounds. The noise of ships passing overhead, their engines and propellers creating vibrations that traveled down through the water column. This mixture of natural and artificial sounds creates a complex acoustic environment, and scientists are still working to understand how these sounds might affect the creatures living at such depths. Some deep-sea organisms are believed to be sensitive to sound and vibrations, using these cues to navigate, communicate, or detect prey and predators. As human activities in the ocean increase, including shipping traffic, sonar use, and potentially deep-sea mining, understanding the acoustic environment of places like the Mariana Trench becomes increasingly important for protecting the life that dwells there. The geological activity in the Mariana region continues to shape the trench and the surrounding area. Earthquakes are common along the subduction zone as the Pacific Plate grinds beneath the Mariana Plate. Most of these earthquakes are too deep to be felt by people on the surface, but they represent the ongoing movement of Earth's crust, the slow dance of continents and ocean floors that has been occurring for billions of years and will continue long after humanity is gone. Occasionally, these earthquakes can be powerful enough to generate tsunamis, enormous waves that can travel across the Pacific Ocean and cause havoc when they reach coastlines. The Mariana region is part of the Pacific Ring of Fire, a horseshoe-shaped belt of volcanic activity and seismic events that encircles the Pacific Ocean. This ring includes many of the world's most active volcanoes and most powerful earthquakes, and understanding the processes occurring at places like the Mariana Trench helps scientists better predict and prepare for these natural events. The trench also hosts mud volcanoes, fascinating geological features where mud and fluids are forced up through the seafloor by pressure from below. Some of these mud volcanoes in the Mariana region are among the largest on Earth, rising hundreds of feet above the surrounding seafloor. They continuously emit mud and fluids, creating mounds and cones that modify the local topography. These features provide yet another type of habitat for specialized organisms and offer insights into the movement of fluids, materials through the Earth's crust. There are also seamounts in the region, underwater mountains that rise from the seafloor but don't break the ocean's surface. These seamounts can host their own unique ecosystems, with different species adapted to the particular conditions at different depths on the slopes of the mountains. The interplay between the deep trenches, the volcanic activity, the seamounts, and the surrounding ocean creates a mosaic of habitats, each with its own character and community of organisms. The scientific study of the Mariana Trench continues to raise profound questions and challenge our assumptions. For instance, scientists long believed that calcium could not exist in solid form at the pressures found in the deepest parts of the trench, leading to the hypothesis that fish with calcium-based skeletons couldn't survive there. Yet organisms have been found at these depths, forcing scientists to reconsider these assumptions. The Mariana snailfish, for example, has a cartilage-based skeleton rather than one made of calcified bone, an elegant evolutionary solution to the problem of building a structural framework in an environment where calcium chemistry is altered by extreme pressure. Researchers are also studying the microorganisms living in the trench sediments and around hydrothermal vents, looking for novel enzymes and biochemical pathways that might have applications in medicine, industry, or biotechnology. Some of these microbes can break down complex organic molecules under extreme pressure and temperature conditions, potentially offering insights into waste processing, biofuel production, or other industrial processes. The study of extremophiles, organisms that thrive in extreme conditions, has implications far beyond marine biology. Understanding how life adapts to survive at the limits of what seems possible helps us refine our understanding of the fundamental requirements for life and expands the range of environments where we might expect to find living organisms, both on Earth and potentially on other worlds. Looking to the future, plans exist for continued exploration of the Mariana Trench and other deep ocean trenches around the world. New technologies are being developed, including more capable autonomous vehicles that can explore without human occupants, more sophisticated sensors that can detect and analyze chemical and biological signatures, and improved imaging systems that can function in the low light conditions created by bioluminescence. There's growing recognition of the importance of understanding and protecting the deep ocean. As technology improves and deep-sea mining becomes more economically feasible, there's concern about the potential impacts of extracting minerals and resources from the seafloor. The communities around hydrothermal vents, the slow-growing organisms, and the unique ecosystems of the deep trenches could be damaged or altered by mining activities. And scientists working to study and document these environments before such activities become widespread. International cooperation in ocean science is expanding, with researchers from many countries working together to explore and understand the deep sea. Sharing data, resources, and expertise helps advance knowledge more quickly and ensures that discoveries benefit humanity as a whole, rather than being kept proprietary or secret. The Mariana Trench represents many things to different people. To scientists, it's a laboratory for studying extreme environments and the limits of life. To explorers, it's a frontier, one of the last truly wild and unknown places on Earth. To the general public, it's a source of wonder and inspiration, a reminder that our planet still holds mysteries waiting to be uncovered. And to those seeking peace and perspective, it offers a profound sense of humility and connection to something vast and ancient. There is something deeply calming about contemplating the Mariana Trench. Perhaps it's the knowledge that this place has existed in its current form for millions of years, a constant presence beneath the changing surface of the ocean. Perhaps it's the darkness and stillness, so different from the bright, noisy, fast-paced world we usually inhabit. Or perhaps it's the remarkable persistence of life, the quiet determination of organisms that have found ways to not just survive, but flourish in conditions that seem impossible. The trench invites us to slow down, to think in longer timescales, to recognize that the deepest truths about our planet reveal themselves slowly, patiently, to those willing to look carefully and listen closely. It reminds us that we are part of a living world that extends far beyond what we can see in our daily lives, that beneath the waves exists an entire realm as rich and complex as anything on land, filled with creatures that have never seen sunlight, that navigate by sensing vibrations and chemical gradients, that glow with their own gentle light in the eternal darkness. As we come to the end of our journey through the facts and features of the Mariana Trench, take a moment to imagine yourself hovering in the water column at great depth. The pressure surrounds you, but you are safe within the sphere of your imagination. The water is cold and still, almost viscous in its density. The darkness is complete, yet here and there, tiny lights flicker and glow, bioluminescent creatures going about their lives. A hatchetfish drifts past, its belly glowing softly to match the faint light from above. A Dumbo octopus flaps its ear-like fins as it searches the sediment below. In the distance, around a hydrothermal vent, you can sense the presence of a thriving community, tube worms swaying gently in the current, crabs and shrimp clustering around the source of chemical energy that sustains them all. This world exists right now, even as you rest and prepare for sleep. The creatures of the Mariana Trench are going about their lives in the eternal night, unaware of the human world above them, following patterns of behavior refined over millions of years of evolution. The trench itself, that great crescent-shaped depression in the ocean floor, continues its slow geological evolution, deepening imperceptibly as the Pacific Plate continues its ancient journey into the Earth's mantle. There is something beautiful in this continuity, this ongoing story that unfolds whether we're watching or not. The Mariana Trench doesn't need our attention to exist or to matter. It simply is, a natural wonder of our planet, a reminder that the world is larger and stranger and more wonderful than we sometimes remember. As you drift towards sleep tonight, you might imagine yourself descending gently through those dark waters, slowly sinking deeper and deeper, leaving behind all the concerns and stresses of your day. Down you go, past the zone where light penetrates, into the permanent twilight, then into the absolute darkness. The pressure grows, but you are safe, protected, cradled by the water itself. And as you reach the bottom, that silty floor stretching away into the distance, you realize that you have reached a place of perfect stillness, perfect peace, where nothing changes quickly, where time moves at its own pace, where you can simply rest and be. You have done enough for today. You have learned about one of Earth's most extraordinary places, a hidden realm that few will ever see, but which exists nonetheless, quietly supporting its unique forms of life, slowly changing according to forces that operate on timescales that dwarf human experience. Close your eyes now. Let the image of the deep ocean fill your mind. Imagine the gentle lights of bioluminescent creatures, the slow movements of fish adapted to the darkness, the patient flow of cold water along the trench floor. Rest now, knowing that the world is vast and full of wonders, that there are places of profound stillness and beauty, that life persists even in the most challenging environments, and that you are part of this magnificent, interconnected whole. Let the peaceful darkness of the Mariana Trench enfold you. Let the weight of the deep water soothe you. Let yourself sink gently into rest, into dreams, into the quiet embrace of sleep. The sea floor of the Mariana Trench is not simply bare rock or empty space. It is covered in a layer of sediment that has its own fascinating story to tell. A story written in particles so small that they're invisible to the naked eye. Yet, collectively, they create a record of millions of years of ocean history. The sediment at the bottom of the trench is primarily composed of what scientists call biogenic ooze, a soft material made up of the remains of countless tiny organisms that once lived in the waters above. This ooze consists largely of the shells and skeletons of microscopic plankton, both the plant-like phytoplankton and the animal zooplankton that form the base of the ocean's food web. When these organisms complete their life cycles, their remains sink slowly through the water column, a gentle rain of organic material that scientists poetically call marine snow. This descent can take weeks or even months, as the tiny particles drift downward through mile after mile of water, eventually coming to rest on the seafloor far below. The composition of this sediment reveals much about the history of the ocean above. Different types of plankton have different types of shells. Some have shells made of calcium carbonate, while others have shells composed of silica, the same material found in glass. The relative abundance of these different types of shells in the sediment can tell scientists about past ocean conditions, including temperature, nutrient availability, and even the chemistry of the water. Scientists who have studied sediment cores taken from the Mariana Trench have found that the material is incredibly soft and fluid, with very high water content. The sediment has high porosity, meaning it's full of tiny spaces filled with water, and it's highly compressible. Under a microscope, the sediment reveals a structure composed of flocculation, where particles cluster together in loose aggregates. Mixed throughout are diatom debris, the remains of these beautiful single-celled algae with their intricate glass shells, along with empty shells of various other organisms. The sediment at the bottom of the Challenger Deep is pale in color, often described as a light gray or tan. The explorer Jacques Piccard, during his historic descent in 1960, described the bottom as appearing light and clear, covered in what he called a waste of firm diatomaceous ooze. This description captures the somewhat otherworldly appearance of the seafloor at these depths, a smooth, soft surface, unlike anything we encounter on land. The rate at which sediment accumulates in the trench is surprisingly variable. In some areas, the sedimentation rate is estimated at about 0.02 centimeters per year, which might seem incredibly slow until you realize that over millions of years, this adds up to substantial deposits. But the deposition is not continuous or uniform. The trench experiences what scientists call episodic sedimentation events, sudden influxes of material that can be triggered by earthquakes, underwater landslides, or other disturbances. When an earthquake occurs along the subduction zone, it can destabilize sediments on the slopes of the trench, causing them to cascade downward in what's called a turbidity current. These underwater avalanches can transport large amounts of material to the trench floor very quickly, creating layers in the sediment record that mark these dramatic events. The funneling effect of the trench's V-shaped profile means that material from a wide area can be concentrated into the narrow bottom, increasing the accumulation rate beyond what would be expected in a flat abyssal plain. Hidden within this seemingly lifeless mud are remarkable communities of microscopic organisms. Despite the extreme conditions, the sediment of the Mariana Trench is teeming with microbial life. One mud sample, collected from the Challenger Deep, yielded approximately 200 different types of microorganisms, a surprising diversity for such an extreme environment. More recent research, including a comprehensive study published in 2025 that analyzed over 1,600 sediment samples from the Mariana and nearby trenches, identified more than 6,000 previously unknown microbial species. These microbes are not merely surviving in the trench, they are thriving, carrying out complex metabolic processes that include carbon fixation, nutrient cycling, and the breakdown of organic matter. They possess genes and biochemical pathways adapted specifically for life under extreme pressure, low temperatures, and complete darkness. Some of these microbes are chemolithoautotrophs, meaning they can build organic molecules using energy from inorganic chemical reactions, rather than relying on organic material from above. This makes them primary producers in the deep-sea ecosystem, similar to how plants function on land, but using chemistry instead of sunlight. The microbial communities in the trench sediments show functional diversity comparable to those found in much shallower waters, challenging the assumption that life in the Hadal zone would be sparse or simple. These tiny organisms play crucial roles in processing organic material that reaches the seafloor, releasing nutrients back into the water, and supporting the food web that sustains larger organisms like amphipods and sea cucumbers. Researchers have also discovered that biological activity in the center of the Challenger Deep is surprisingly high. Measurements of oxygen consumption rates show that microbes in the deepest part of the trench are more active than those on the surrounding slopes, suggesting that organic matter accumulates preferentially in the deepest areas, perhaps due to the funneling effect we mentioned earlier. This elevated biological activity maintains a vibrant, though invisible ecosystem right at the bottom of the world's deepest trench. The water itself within the Mariana Trench has unique chemical properties that distinguish it from the water in shallower parts of the ocean. The extreme pressure affects how substances dissolve and how chemical reactions proceed. For instance, the solubility of gases changes dramatically under high pressure. Carbon dioxide, which is a gas at the surface, can exist in unusual states at depth, including as a liquid that's denser than water, causing it to pool in depressions on the sea floor. Some hydrothermal vents in the Mariana region actually emit liquid carbon dioxide, rather than the hydrogen sulfide that's more typical of deep-sea vents. These CO2 vents create streams of bubbles that rise through the water, looking remarkably like champagne being poured, which has led scientists to nickname them champagne vents. The Northwest Eifuku Seamount in the Mariana region hosts several of these unusual vents, and they support their own unique communities of organisms adapted to the high CO2 environment. The chemistry of the vent fluids can vary dramatically from one site to another. Some vents emit water rich in sulfur compounds, creating the classic black smokers where iron sulfides precipitate out of the hot water and form towering chimneys of mineral deposits. Other vents, called white smokers, emit fluids rich in different minerals that create lighter-colored formations. There are even vents that emit liquid sulfur, creating golden pools on the seafloor, a sight so unusual and beautiful that it almost seems like something from science fiction. The minerals deposited around these vents are of intense scientific interest. They contain metals like copper, zinc, iron, and sometimes even gold and silver, concentrated from the surrounding rock by the action of hot water. Over time, these deposits can build massive structures, some reaching heights of several stories. When active, the vents support thriving communities of life. But even after a vent becomes inactive, the mineral structures remain, creating complex habitats for organisms adapted to rocky surfaces. The influence of the trench extends beyond the immediate seafloor. The water within the trench is not isolated, but participates in the global ocean circulation system, though on very slow timescales. Deep water formed in polar regions, where cold, salty water sinks due to its density, eventually makes its way to the deepest parts of the ocean, including trenches like the Mariana. This thermohaline circulation, sometimes called the ocean conveyor belt, operates on timescales of hundreds or thousands of years, slowly mixing the ocean's waters. The properties of water at extreme pressure are fascinating in themselves. Water is a remarkable substance with many unusual characteristics, and these become even more pronounced under the conditions found in the trench. The pressure affects the arrangement of water molecules, making the liquid slightly more structured than at the surface. However, the water does not freeze despite the cold temperatures, partly because the high pressure actually lowers the freezing point of water, and partly because the salt dissolved in seawater further depresses the freezing temperature. If the pressure were even higher, at certain depths, water would actually form different types of ice, exotic forms that are denser than liquid water and can exist at temperatures well above the normal freezing point of water. These high-pressure ices are given names like Ice 6 and Ice 7, and they have crystal structures quite different from the familiar ice we see in our freezers. But the Mariana Trench is not quite deep enough for these exotic ices to form, so the water remains liquid throughout. Light, or rather its absence, profoundly shapes life in the Mariana Trench. Sunlight penetrates seawater to varying depths depending on its wavelength. Red light is absorbed first, within the top 30 feet or so, which is why everything looks blue-green as you descend. Orange and yellow are absorbed next, then green, until finally only blue light remains. This blue light can penetrate to depths of several hundred feet in clear water, creating the twilight zone of the ocean, a dim realm where the last traces of sunlight barely illuminate the water. Below about 3,300 feet, no sunlight penetrates at all. The absence of light has several important consequences. Without photosynthesis, the food web must rely entirely on organic material sinking from above, or on chemosynthesis where available. Organisms that live in complete darkness have no need for complex color vision, and many deep-sea creatures have reduced or simplified eyes, or in some cases, no eyes at all. However, the absence of sunlight doesn't mean the absence of all light. As we discussed earlier, bioluminescence is extremely common in the deep sea. The deep ocean is not uniformly dark, but rather is filled with tiny, fleeting lights, like fireflies scattered through three-dimensional space. Some scientists who have descended to great depths in submersibles report that when they turn off their lights, after their eyes adjust to the darkness, they can see a constant twinkling and flashing all around them, the bioluminescent displays of countless organisms going about their business. The patterns and colors of bioluminescence vary widely among species. Some organisms produce a steady glow, while others create rapid flashes. Some can produce only one flash in their lifetime, releasing their bioluminescent chemicals all at once in a desperate defensive display. Others can flash repeatedly, controlling their light organs' output with precision. The colors typically range from blue to blue-green, wavelengths that travel furthest through seawater, though some organisms produce red or even white light. One particularly fascinating use of bioluminescence involves communication. In the vast, dark expanses of the deep sea, finding a mate is a significant challenge. Many species have evolved specific bioluminescent displays that serve as signals to potential mates. The pattern, color, and timing of flashes can identify the species and even the sex of the individual, helping to ensure that organisms don't waste energy pursuing the wrong species in the darkness. Some deep-sea fish have elaborate light organs that they can flash in species-specific patterns, like a Morse code of the abyss. Others have different light patterns for males and females, allowing individuals to identify suitable mates. The deep-sea dragonfish we mentioned earlier has a light organ beneath its eye that produces red bioluminescence, an unusual color for the deep sea. Because most other organisms cannot see red light, the dragonfish can use this like a private spotlight, illuminating its prey without the prey knowing they're being watched. The metabolic rate of organisms in the Mariana Trench tends to be quite slow compared to their relatives in warmer, shallower waters. The cold temperature slows down chemical reactions, including those that power living organisms. This means that deep-sea creatures often grow slowly, reproduce infrequently, and can live for remarkably long times. Some deep-sea fish species are believed to live for decades or even centuries, their slow metabolism allowing them to persist in an environment where food is scarce and growth is measured in millimeters per year rather than inches. This slow pace of life has a certain peaceful quality to it. These organisms are not rushed, not pressured by the rapid changes that affect surface-dwelling creatures. The seasons that mark so much of life on land, the cycles of temperature and daylight that drive migration and reproduction and growth, simply don't exist in the deep sea. Instead, life proceeds at its own steady rhythm, patient and persistent, adapted to an environment that has remained essentially unchanged for millions of years. The reproductive strategies of deep-sea organisms often reflect the challenges of finding mates in the darkness and vast distances of the abyss. Many deep-sea creatures are hermaphroditic, possessing both male and female reproductive organs, which increases their chances of successfully reproducing when they do encounter another member of their species. Others release eggs and sperm into the water, relying on currents to bring them together, a strategy that requires producing enormous numbers of eggs to compensate for the low probability of fertilization. The anglerfish's mating strategy, where the tiny male fuses permanently to the much larger female, is perhaps the most extreme example of adaptation to the problem of finding mates in the deep sea. Once fused, the male effectively becomes a reproductive organ of the female, his circulatory system merging with hers. The female may have several males attached to her body at once, ensuring a ready supply of sperm whenever she's ready to produce eggs. While this might seem grotesque from a human perspective, it's actually an elegant solution to the challenges of reproduction in an environment where encounters are rare. Many deep-sea organisms also exhibit what's called deep-sea gigantism, growing to sizes much larger than their shallow water relatives. Giant isopods, which are relatives of the tiny pill bugs you might find in your garden, can grow to be over a foot long in the deep sea. Giant amphipods reach several inches in length, many times the size of their coastal cousins. Scientists believe this gigantism may be an adaptation to the cold temperatures and low metabolic rates of the deep sea, or perhaps to the pressure itself, though the exact reasons are still debated. The sensory world of organisms in the Mariana Trench is quite different from ours. Without light, vision is limited or absent. So many creatures rely heavily on other senses. Touch becomes extremely important, and many deep-sea animals have long, delicate filaments or antennae that they use to sense their surroundings. These structures can detect the slightest movement or vibration in the water, allowing the animal to sense prey or predators in the darkness. Smell, or more accurately, the detection of chemical cues in the water, is also crucial. Many deep-sea organisms have highly developed chemical sensing abilities, allowing them to detect the scent of food from great distances. A piece of bait lowered into the deep sea can attract scavengers from surprisingly far away, all following the chemical trail to its source. Some deep-sea creatures can also sense weak electrical fields produced by living organisms. As we mentioned with the goblin shark, specialized organs called ampullae of Lorenzini can detect the tiny electrical signals generated by muscle contractions and nerve impulses. This electrosensing ability can work in complete darkness and allows the predator to locate hidden prey that isn't moving or making sound. The role of sound in the deep sea is also significant, though it's an environment we tend to think of as silent. In reality, the ocean is quite noisy, filled with sounds from many sources. Whales and other marine mammals produce calls that can travel for hundreds of miles through the water. Shrimp colonies create crackling sounds. Earthquakes produce rumbling noises that propagate through both the water and the seafloor. Even weather at the surface, like storms, creates sound that penetrates to the depths. The hydrophone deployed in the Challenger Deep recorded all of these sounds and more. The researchers were surprised by how much noise reached even the deepest point of the ocean. This raises important questions about how human activities might affect deep-sea ecosystems. Shipping traffic has increased dramatically over the past century, and ships produce significant underwater noise from their engines and propellers. This noise pollution can potentially interfere with the communication and navigation of marine animals, though we're only beginning to understand the extent of these impacts. The submersibles and vehicles used to explore the Mariana Trench are marvels of engineering in their own right. Each one represents years of design work and millions of dollars of investment. The pressure hull, the spherical chamber that protects the occupants, must be made from materials that can withstand the crushing pressure without being so heavy that the vehicle can't move. Titanium is often used for its excellent strength-to-weight ratio and its resistance to corrosion in seawater. The sphere must be perfectly round because any imperfection could create a weak point where the pressure could initiate a catastrophic failure. The viewports, typically made from thick acrylic plastic, must be conical in shape, thicker on the outside than the inside, so that the pressure actually pushes them more firmly into place rather than forcing them inward. Even with these precautions, the viewport shrinks visibly during descent as it's compressed by the increasing pressure. The buoyancy system of a deep-sea submersible is carefully calculated. The vehicle must be slightly heavier than water to descend, but not so heavy that it can't be controlled. Variable ballast systems allow the pilot to adjust the weight, releasing ballast to ascend and adding it to descend. The Trieste used iron shot as ballast, which could be released by electromagnets, and gasoline for buoyancy, because gasoline is less dense than water and, importantly, is largely incompressible, so its volume doesn't change significantly with pressure. Modern submersibles use syntactic foam for buoyancy, a material made of tiny hollow glass spheres embedded in a resin matrix. This foam is strong enough to resist compression even at the greatest depths, yet light enough to provide the necessary lift. The exterior of the submersible must also withstand pressure, and every system, from batteries to thrusters to cameras, must be designed to operate under extreme conditions. The descent to the bottom of the Mariana Trench takes several hours, a slow journey through increasingly dark water. During this time, the occupants watch as the blue light from above gradually fades to blackness. They pass through different zones of the ocean, each with its characteristic inhabitants. In the mesopelagic or twilight zone, they might see jellyfish pulsing slowly through the water, or schools of lanternfish with their rows of light organs glowing softly. Deeper, in the bathypelagic or midnight zone, encounters become less frequent. The water pressure increases steadily, and the temperature drops to just above freezing. By the time the submersible approaches the seafloor, hours have passed in relative silence, the only sounds being the hum of systems and the occasional creak as the hull adjusts to the pressure. Then, finally, the bottom appears in the vehicle's lights, that pale sediment spreading away into darkness, and the descent slows for a gentle landing. Once on the bottom, movement must be slow and careful. The sediment is so soft that the submersible's landing feet sink several inches into it, and any disturbance creates clouds that reduce visibility to near zero. The lights of the submersible illuminate only a small area, typically just a few meters in diameter, creating a small bubble of light in the vast darkness. Beyond this bubble, the trench extends away in all directions, unseen, unknowable in its vastness. Collecting samples at these depths requires specialized equipment. Robotic arms grasp sediment cores or delicately pick up organisms. Water samplers are triggered to capture fluid from near the seafloor. Temperature. Probes measure the exact temperature of the water and sediment. Every action must be deliberate and careful, because any malfunction at this depth could be disastrous, and help is 7 miles and several hours away. The psychological experience of being at the bottom of the Mariana Trench is difficult to describe. The few people who have made the journey report feelings of profound isolation, but also of wonder and privilege at seeing something so few humans have ever witnessed. There's an awareness of being at the furthest point from the normal human world, a feeling of having stepped outside ordinary experience into something unique and extraordinary. Yet, there's also a certain tranquility to it. The environment is utterly stable, unchanging. There are no currents to buffet the submersible, no waves, no weather, just stillness, and cold, and pressure, and darkness. In some ways, it's the most peaceful place on Earth, a refuge from the chaos and noise of the surface world. And in that stillness, in that profound silence, there's space for thought, for reflection, for a perspective that's difficult to gain anywhere else. The return journey, ascending back to the surface, takes roughly as long as the descent. The submersible releases its ballast and begins to rise, slowly at first, then faster as it approaches the surface. The occupants watch as the darkness gradually lightens, as the first hints of blue appear far above, growing brighter with each passing meter. After hours in darkness, the return of light is almost overwhelming, a reminder of the world they left behind. As scientific understanding of the Mariana Trench grows, so too does appreciation for its importance. The trench is not just a curiosity, a record holder in the book of Earth's superlatives. It's a living laboratory, a unique ecosystem, and a window into geological processes that shape our planet. The discoveries made there have applications far beyond marine biology and oceanography. They inform our understanding of how life adapts to extreme conditions, which has relevance for fields as diverse as medicine, biotechnology, and even the search for life beyond Earth. The enzymes produced by deep-sea microbes, which function under extreme pressure and low temperature, have potential industrial applications. Some might be useful in cold water detergents or in processes that require high pressure. The study of how proteins fold and function under pressure could lead to insights useful in food science, where high-pressure processing is sometimes used to preserve foods without heat. The possibilities are vast and largely unexplored, just like the trench itself. As we look to the future, the Mariana Trench faces both opportunities and challenges. The designation of the Marianas Trench Marine National Monument provides some protection, but enforcement in such a remote location is difficult. The threat of deep-sea mining looms on the horizon, as companies express interest extracting minerals from the seafloor. While the protected areas of the monument are off-limits, adjacent areas are not, and the impacts of mining could extend beyond the immediate extraction site. Climate change also poses potential risks, though the deep ocean is somewhat buffered from rapid surface changes. The ocean is absorbing much of the excess heat and carbon dioxide produced by human activities, and this is affecting ocean chemistry and temperature even at depth. Ocean acidification, caused by the absorption of CO2, changes the chemistry of seawater in ways that could affect even deep-sea organisms, particularly those that build shells or skeletons from calcium carbonate. Yet there's reason for hope. Public interest in the deep ocean is growing, driven by stunning footage from deep-sea expeditions and by the accessibility of information through the internet and social media. The more people learn about places like the Mariana Trench, the more they appreciate the need to protect them. Young people in particular are showing increased interest in ocean conservation and marine science, drawn by the mystery and beauty of the underwater world. Technological advances continue to make deep-sea exploration more feasible and more affordable. Autonomous underwater vehicles, which can operate without human occupants, are becoming more sophisticated and can stay submerged for long periods, collecting data and samples. Improved cameras and sensors allow for better documentation of deep-sea environments. And advances in materials science are making it possible to build equipment that can withstand extreme conditions more reliably and at lower cost. International cooperation in ocean science is also expanding. Researchers from many countries are working together, sharing data and resources and coordinating expeditions. The ocean, after all, belongs to no single nation. The deep sea, in particular, exists beyond national jurisdictions for the most part, making it a common heritage of humanity that should be studied and protected cooperatively. As you rest tonight, consider the remarkable reality that beneath the waves, in the deepest darkness imaginable, life persists. Tiny lights flicker and glow. Creatures move slowly through the cold water. Microbes process nutrients in the sediment. And the great geological forces that have shaped Earth for billions of years continue their patient work. The plates slowly grinding together, the mountains gradually rising from the seafloor, the trenches slowly deepening. This is happening right now, as you lie comfortably in your bed, in the warm light of your room. The contrast could not be more stark. You in the familiar world of air and light, and those creatures in their world of pressure and darkness. Yet we share this planet. We are all part of the same interconnected system, all children of the same ancient process that gave rise to life billions of years ago. The Mariana Trench reminds us of the scales on which nature operates, scales so vast they challenge our comprehension. 7 miles of water, 1,000 times the pressure at the surface, temperatures just above freezing, darkness that has been unbroken for millions of years. Yet within these extreme conditions, within what seems like utter hostility to life, we find not emptiness, but abundance. Not sterility, but diversity. Not silence, but a complex acoustic landscape. This persistence of life, this quiet determination to exist and to thrive, even in the most challenging circumstances, is perhaps the most inspiring lesson the Mariana Trench offers us. It suggests that life is far more resilient, far more adaptable, and far more persistent than we might imagine. It reminds us that the boundaries of what's possible are constantly being expanded by the ingenuity of evolution and the remarkable properties of the living world. As your consciousness slowly drifts away from these waking thoughts and toward the gentle embrace of sleep, let your mind wander once more through those dark waters. Feel yourself floating suspended in the cold stillness, with the pressure all around you but not touching you, held safely in your sphere of imagination. Let the darkness become not frightening but comforting, like a soft blanket that wraps around you and muffles all the sharp edges of the world. Think of those tiny lights, those bioluminescent creatures flashing and glowing, creating brief moments of beauty in the darkness. Each light is a small affirmation of existence, a quiet declaration that life is here, that it continues, that it persists despite all obstacles. And isn't that something worth celebrating? Something worth contemplating as you drift towards sleep? That everywhere we look on this planet, even in the most extreme and unlikely places, we find life. You have explored the deepest place on Earth tonight, if only in imagination. You have descended through 7 miles of water to touch the bottom of the world. You have met some of the remarkable creatures that live in that hidden realm, and you have learned about the forces that created it and the processes that sustain it. You have traveled further from your everyday experience than most people ever will, and you have done so while lying comfortably, safely, peacefully in your own space. Now it is time to rest. Time to let go of these facts and figures, these depths and pressures, these strange creatures and dark waters. Time to simply be, to breathe, to relax, to drift. The Mariana Trench will still be there tomorrow, 7 miles down, mysterious and beautiful and enduring. But right now, you don't need to think about it anymore. You can simply let it be. Let it rest in your memory like a peaceful image, a reminder of the wonder and diversity of the world we live in. Close your eyes if they're not already closed. Feel the weight of your body against your bed, the warmth of your blankets, the softness of your pillow. Notice your breathing, slow and steady. Each breath coming easily, naturally, without effort. Your body knows how to rest. It knows how to release the tensions of the day, how to settle into stillness, how to prepare for sleep. Let that stillness spread through you now, like the stillness of the deep ocean. Let it flow through your limbs, your torso, your neck and head. Feel yourself becoming heavy, relaxed, peaceful. There's nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to be. Just this moment, just this rest, just this gentle slide towards sleep. You have done enough for today. More than enough. You have learned and thought and wondered. Now it is time to release all of that, to let it settle like sediment sinking through water, slowly coming to rest on the ocean floor of your mind, where it will remain, peaceful and undisturbed while you sleep. May your rest be deep and restorative. May your dreams be gentle and pleasant. May you wake refreshed and renewed, ready for whatever tomorrow brings. But for now, just sleep, just rest. Just let yourself be carried by the gentle current of sleep down into peaceful, restful darkness. Good night, dear listener. Sleep well, and may your dreams be as deep and peaceful as the ocean's greatest depths.